Good morning, Corpus Christi Coastal Bend listeners worldwide. Welcome on in to another edition of the Sunday Sports Rush right here on News Talk KEYS 1440 AM and 98.7 FM. I'm your host, James Espinosa, and I'm back in the saddle again, back from my hiatus to San Antonio, where I spent some time up there with some friends. Got a little waisty pants, as one does in San Antonio on the Riverwalk. It is me. I'm back. I feel good. I'm with Alex Weister in the studio. What's up?
Glad to be here on my final day of spring break.
Yeah, man. You're heading back up north. And, of course, we are here with producer and co-host Adin Ducker.
What's Gucci with it?
We got a packed show. And when I say packed show, I'm not exaggerating either. This ain't just me trying to sell this radio program for you to listen for the next 2 hours. I mean it. This run sheet is stuffed. It is absolutely insane, the amount of sports that has happened.
Just think of yourself like after Thanksgiving dinner.
Yes, exactly. Just think of that. Think of yourself sitting Thanksgiving dinner full off of 3 turkey plates. This is the type of rundown we have for you today. We got March Madness talk. We got all of that insanity. We have Islander talk because Coach Lutz is leaving Corpus Christi. We'll dive into that a little bit later. We have the latest Dallas Cowboys news. Zeke is gone. The Cowboys made a trade for Stephon Gilmore. They brought back a bevy of guys from last year. We're going to talk all that and more. We got some World Baseball Classic to discuss because the United States was in an all-time classic last night against Venezuela. And Jose Altuve is hurt. So, my goodness, tons to get into. If you want to get into the show, hit us up on the text line, 361-882-5397, 361-882-5397. Hit us up on the text line right now. Get your thoughts in here. Hit us up on Twitter at SportsRush1440 as well. We will be taking your reactions all show long. But right now, we have some breaking news.
Breaking news.
All right. So according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, the Cowboys have made a trade this morning. 15 minutes before the show started, the Cowboys have traded for wide receiver Brandin Cooks, formerly of the Houston Texans. The Cowboys give away a 5th-round pick in 2023 and a 6th-round pick in 2024. So the Cowboys, who were in the rumor mills of DeAndre Hopkins, of Odell Beckham Jr., and the like, well, those guys ain't coming to Dallas. It appears that Brandin Cooks will now be wide receiver 2 opposite CeeDee Lamb. He will join Michael Gallup and company, and the Cowboys have themselves a receiver, ladies and gentlemen. 361-882-5397. Give us your thoughts on the Cowboys making this trade this morning. We'll go around the table here. I'll start with Alex. Initial thoughts, Cowboys have received Brandin Cooks from the Texans.
I think it's a good trade personally. I mean, he's getting up there in age. He's still very good production-wise. I think he can fit well as a number 2 receiver. I feel like you could definitely get an upgrade at number 2 and slot him in as like a slot receiver where I feel like he would thrive the most. But otherwise, I feel like this is a great signing for the Cowboys.
Yeah, initial thoughts from my part, I'm not mad at it. Would I have been a little bit more excited if DeAndre Hopkins was involved?
Of course.
No doubt about that. If you could bring Hopkins over, of course. I'm definitely stoked. But, just looking at Brandin Cooks and the numbers that he's had over the past few years, since 2015, he's had 6 1,000-yard seasons. So 6 1,000-yard seasons in the past 8 years. Last year with the Texans, of course, we know their struggles with Davis Mills at quarterback. He put up a measly 699 yards, 57 receptions, 3 touchdowns, but he did average about 12.3 yards per reception. So, I mean, look, he is a deep threat. He's a smaller type of wide receiver. He comes in at 5'10", only 29 years old, so there's still maybe a little bit of length in his career, maybe a couple more seasons of productivity. But Brandin Cooks is a Dallas Cowboy, and we are reacting to that this morning. Aiden, your thoughts?
Yeah, I've always thought, Brandin Cooks over his career has always been a very solid, under the radar kind of receiver, not really a flashy in your face kind of guy. Just gets there and produces. He's not, I wouldn't say he's like an elite receiver at this stage of his career, but he'll definitely be a useful wide receiver too that the Cowboys desperately needed last season.
Of course, and we know the struggles that the Cowboys had, especially in that playoff game against the 49ers where CeeDee Lamb was the only one doing anything. Dalton Schultz was the only one doing anything, and the other receivers were pretty much blanked. The Cowboys have needed somebody opposite of CeeDee Lamb to get their offense fully going. So this is a move that it surprised me this morning because when you think about it, right, you look at the history of the Cowboys have always been a team that stands pat during free agency. The Cowboys were actually active during the first week of free agency. I mean, look at the trade for Stephon Gilmore. They bring him in from the Colts to solidify their secondary and pair him up with Trevon Diggs on the opposite side at cornerback. And now you're bringing in Brandin Cooks, albeit both of these guys are a little bit long in the tooth. They're not necessarily young. They're not in their rookie contracts anymore. Maybe their best days are behind them, but they are still solidified NFL players that will make this roster better. 361-882-5397. Let us know your takes. The Cowboys have now made a trade with the Texans for Brandin Cooks. The Cowboys are sending away a 5th-round pick this year, 2023, and a 6th-round pick in 2024. So, wow, what a start to the show.
Yeah.
What a start to the show. Let us know your thoughts. We're going to be diving into it all the way till 11 o'clock. Like I mentioned, we do have a packed show. Go ahead, Alex.
And talking a little bit more about the Stephon Gilmore trade, getting him, it was, if you can tap into that potential that he had on the Patriots, that is going to be special because it almost seemed like as soon as he left the Patriots, when he went to that new team, there was the big, oh my God, he's somewhere else now. But after that, when the season started, you really didn't hear much about him. Then when he left again, you really didn't hear much about that either. And when he was on the Colts, when he was on the Panthers, you did not hear much about him. But that doesn't mean that he still doesn't have good years ahead of him. I don't doubt that the Cowboys could tap into his long-lost potential from the Patriots. And if they can, then, I mean, maybe Diggs would even take a backseat.
I mean, yeah, that is, good thought right there, good possibility. And, he's going to be opposite Diggs, so all the pressure's not going to be on him. I mean, maybe it will, because what if Diggs does keep on excelling as a corner, as a number one, and now, guys will be lining up against Stephon Gilmore, I should say.
So another thing about that, with Gilmore being as old as he is up there, he's 32. For a corner, that's really when you start to see some production fall off. You could have him sit on a guy the whole game, and you can have Diggs, since he's the younger one, he could move all over the place and cover it anywhere on the field, really.
Yeah, and the Cowboys secondary, it's gotten better.
Yes.
The Cowboys receiving core this morning has gotten better. Last year, you're relying on guys like James Washington, who didn't do squat. A 3rd-round rookie receiver, Jalen Tolbert, who barely even made the field. Couldn't even make the 53-man roster on game day. They brought in T.Y. Hilton, who had a couple of good games late, but let's be real, T.Y. Hilton is past his prime. The Cowboys wide receiver room got better this morning. 361-882-5397.
And I'd like to just go back to a couple seasons ago when I made my hot take that a lot of people were really confused about was the Cowboys' defense when they had first brought in Dan Quinn. I made the hot take that they were going to be a top 10 defense in the league. Well, look where we are now.
It's been back-to-back years of the Cowboys producing a top 10 defense. Back-to-back years of the Cowboys having a defense that has forced the most takeaways in the league. This is an opportunistic defense. This is an aggressive defense. And with Stephon Gilmore on board now, they only get better. And with Brandin Cooks on the other side, with CeeDee Lamb and company, that offense, as of right now on paper, the receiving core is a lot better than what they were heading into last year, having to rely on Michael Gallup, who is coming off of an ACL injury, which he was never 100% the entire season long. So if you have thoughts on this breaking news this morning, the Cowboys receive Brandin Cooks from the Houston Texans for a 2023 5th-round pick and a 2024 6th-round pick. Let us know your thoughts on the text line. Get in here. Is this a good move for the Cowboys? Are you excited about this move? Are you kind of disappointed that the Cowboys did not go out and try and bring in DeAndre Hopkins or even sign Odell Beckham? Lots to talk about this morning. Lots to get through, but we're going to be here till 11 o'clock reacting to this and taking your comments. 361-882-5397. Wow. What a start to the show. What a start to the show. I do want to get to some of your comments, and here we go. Let's get Frank. Frank is weighing in here. 361-882-5397. So Frank says that he's not happy with the offseason so far with the Cowboys. Frank says Gilmore was a solid pickup and we just traded for Cooks, but I feel we need to be more aggressive. Frank.
Was that before the...
No, he just sent this in right now. He said Gilmore was a solid pickup. We just traded for Cooks, but I feel we need to be more aggressive. Frank, let me just say this, okay? This is the most aggressive the Cowboys have been in an offseason in over a decade, maybe damn near 15 years,
He's like,
Frank.
Man, he's like Paul Pierce. He doesn't want to taste him. He wants the whole thing.
I mean, how much more aggressive do you want, Frank? They're making moves here. 361-882-5397.
And to touch on that a little bit, how aggressive is it that you're expecting a team to be? Who's been the most aggressive team in the offseason so far, really? The Panthers or the Falcons, maybe, with the signings that they've made?
I would say that. I would say the Cowboys have to be up there now.
I would imagine so. I mean, you really can't get much more aggressive than this. I mean, 3 key signings to fill out your roster and maybe some other players. That's really all you can expect from a team.
I just don't get the take from Frank, and we appreciate you, Frank, for getting in. But when you do send in something to us, it's liable to be scrutinized a tad bit. But we love you. But, Frank, they are being aggressive, Frank. What else do you want? What else do you want?
Sounds like you want DeAndre Hopkins.
That's what it kind of sounds like. And it also sounds like a Cowboys fan who's been scorned for many, many years, which is very understandable, Frank, because I'm riding that boat with you. Go ahead.
Well, actually, I would probably have to say the Bears have been the most aggressive. TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds.
Yeah. And, of course, we're going to dive into a lot of free agency talk later on in the show.
Been crazy.
Right now, we're just, reacting to this Cowboys trade news. So, once again, if you missed it, Brandin Cooks, wide receiver of the Texans, has been traded to the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are sending the Texans a 5th-round pick in 2023 and a 6th-round pick in 2024. Get your reactions in here, 361-882-5397. Do you like the trade? Are you disappointed that the Cowboys didn't go after another wide receiver? Is the Cowboys receiving core and offense better this morning than they were yesterday? 361-882-5397. We'll get your reactions after the break. But when we come back, Coach Lutz has left Corpus Christi, the end of an era. The Lutz legacy. We'll discuss Coach Lutz, where he's going, and the impact he has had here in Corpus Christi with the Islanders men's basketball team. Keep it locked to the Sunday Sports Rush. Welcome back to the Sunday Sports Rush, episode number 110. James Espinosa, Alex Weister, and Adin Ducker with you all the way till 11 o'clock. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we're going to dive into everything March Madness. From 9:30 to 10 o'clock, we're going to do a 30-minute March Madness block, going over all the big upsets, how our brackets are looking, which are absolute crap, and, of course, talking about the Islanders and how they did this past week in the NCAA tournament. So we got a lot of March Madness talk coming up, but the big news this morning has been the Cowboys trading for Brandin Cooks of the Texans. The Cowboys send a 5th-round pick here in 2023 and a 6th-round pick in 2024 to Houston. And in return, the Cowboys get wide receiver Brandin Cooks from the Houston Texans. Edwards in here on the text line. Edwards says, "Who is this guy?" ? And then a few minutes later, he said, "Exactly, under the radar." So I guess Edwards trying to say that Cooks, a little bit under the radar. Maybe he's not getting a lot of, the hype that Hopkins and OBJ got. He was kind of the third name that no one was really talking about in terms of the Cowboys. Maybe that's what Edwards trying to get at here. Edward, if you want to expand further, hit us up, 361-882-5397. Luis is in here real quickly. Luis says, "Finishing that trade for Brandin Cooks helps the offseason. Then prepare and load up in the draft. Okay, yeah, the Cowboys, they've been aggressive this offseason, and who knows what other moves they have up their sleeves, but, the draft is coming up, so maybe this might be their last big chess piece, and then they can prep and load up for the draft.
And I would just like to talk about that bracket real quick. I don't know why, but there was just one video I heard talking about Kansas, don't take them, take Arkansas over them in the second round. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll do that. Well, I don't know how, but it panned out.
And I have some really bad March Madness luck that I will dive into here in about 12 minutes.
I'll say this is my worst bracket.
It's absolutely insane. I am the worst at picking.
And let's just get this out the way. We're not ones to take these brackets seriously. We're not going for a perfect bracket. If we pick a 1 over a 16 and the 16 wins, by all means, we are just as happy because we love the chaos.
I'm not too prideful with it.
Yeah.
I'm not.
It's not like money's on the line.
No, it's not. This is just for fun, and it's for the listening audience out there, which we appreciate y'all guys getting in. We had over 25 submissions, so that's pretty good. But, all right, so let's get to what we teased, guys. Steve Lutz is leaving Texas A&M Corpus Christi for Western Kentucky. Lutz, of course, these past 2 years with the Islanders have been nothing but magical.
Yeah, truly.
I mean, the 2-year run that Steve Lutz went on with the Islanders, he compiled a 47-23 record with the Islanders, won 3 conference championships in 2 seasons, 2 conference tournaments, 1 regular season. I mean, what else is there to be said? The Islanders made their first ever, they won their first ever NCAA tournament game this past week. We all know, of course, they did lose to Alabama.
Hard fought, though.
It was hard fought, and they covered the spread. They did cover the 23.5 points. So, you know the old saying, right? Good teams win, great teams cover. The Islanders covered against the number 1 team in the nation. But Coach Lutz is leaving, and in his time here with Texas A&M Corpus Christi, he was named both the 22-23 Southland Coach of the Year and the NABC District 22 Coach of the Year. He was also tabbed a finalist for the Skip Prosser Man of the Year Award, presented to those who not only achieve success on the court, but who display moral integrity off of it as well.
And I haven't looked around very much, but were we the last people to have a full-length interview with him as an Islander?
Ooh.
He had another interview after after we did.
I think we were the first of the week because he got us
Probably
on
went on like a media tour in a way.
He got us on Sunday, and then he did the whole rounds throughout the city and such. But y'all guys did talk to Coach Lutz last week, and it was an amazing interview. I thought y'all guys did very well. And Alex, you had a question to Coach last week where you asked him about, is this, essentially, is this the last ride with this group? And Coach kind of sidestepped and dodged it like an all-pro running back. But, yeah, I mean, the fact that he wasn't so forthcoming and say, oh, you know what, I'm going to be back next year.
Hey,
if you read between the lines.
There was a subliminal message in there from me,
Yeah.
yes. It was planned. I didn't want to be blatant like, are you leaving? Because, no, I'm not going to do that. I would never just blatantly
Yeah.
out. If it wasn't a confirmed thing, I wasn't going to ask
I think we
that.
got too much respect for Coach Lutz.
Oh,
just to,
absolutely. I mean, him
ambush
leaving,
him.
it sucks, but we can't deny what he brought to this team was something special, and we'll likely get another great coach, and we put this team on the map.
I would hope so. I mean, I hope this team doesn't go back to what it was 3 years ago. I hope that this program, now that they've made back-to-back March Madness appearances, they got a win in the first 4. They were competitive against Alabama. I hope this opens eyes and shows other coaches out there that Corpus Christi, the Islanders, this is kind of a sleeping giant, and this could be a really, really great mid-major town.
And get some homegrown talent in there. I mean, you look at the women Islanders team. They've done a fantastic job recruiting from outside of Texas. Don't get me wrong. They only got, one homegrown talent, Haley Campbell?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
look at the boys basketball run in high school this year. We had a lot of great teams make it deep into the playoffs from here.
And-
get some guys from Miller, some vets guys in there.
And another thing too is that I think the Islanders AD said that he wants the program to have sustained success. He doesn't want to fall back, and so from what I'm hearing, I heard that a couple of his assistants are in the league right now. I think didn't they just name an interim coach?
Yes, so yesterday, late last night, Islander Athletics and new athletic director Adrian Rodriguez released a press release, and they named assistant head coach Jim Shaw the interim head coach. And according to all reports out there, Jim Shaw was, he had as much a hand in the success as Coach Lutz did, a well-respected assistant coach. You would think that you keep it in-house and keep this ball rolling.
How much of the coaching staff is Lutz taking with him, though?
We don't know. That's
a question.
We don't know. There's also another assistant coach, Cole Dewey. He's in the running. Ralph Davis, another assistant for A&M Corpus Christi, is in the running. And then there's a couple of other names that I did some research on that are early candidates. There's Jamie McNeely from TCU, Devin Johnson, Texas A&M, Alvin Brooks III from Baylor, who's a hot assistant, up-and-comer, and then Ulrich Malagi from Kansas State. And then one local name, he's coaching basketball right now at A&M Kingsville, Johnny Estelle. So that's a local name who has local ties, who has deep roots in Texas recruiting. And Johnny Estelle has taken the Javelina men's basketball team to multiple NCAA Division II tournaments. I would like for them to stay in-house, but if they don't, my gut feeling, I would love for them to go for Johnny Estelle because personally, and this is just speaking from a personal experience with Coach Estelle, I used to cover that team. I used to work with Coach Estelle. Mm-hmm. Coach Estelle
He's been there a while.
He's been there a while. He's a great leader, and he's turned that men's basketball program around for the Javelinas. I think he would be a great fit here in Corpus, but that's just my personal take.
And I just want to say this, Steve Lutz, he's been, he's been more than I expected. I knew he was going to turn the program around, but back-to-back Southland Conference champions and back-to-back appearances in the NCAA tournament. Just couldn't be more thankful for what he's done in his 2 years that he was here. So hats off to you, Coach. We appreciate you.
Yeah, man.
You were great. You're a great person to interview. Always forthcoming.
Absolutely, man.
We ran. Of course, 44 Keys runs the men's games and all that, and women's, of course, and. Yeah, it was an honor, man.
We're going to miss Coach Lutz. We will miss you, Coach Lutz. And I think I speak for everybody here at the Sports Rush, everybody here at 1440 Keys. What you did for this city was absolutely phenomenal. And you've made lifelong fans here in this building. I'm always going to keep up with what Coach Lutz is doing. I'll always have an eye towards Western Kentucky now to see how Coach Lutz builds that program up. And I have no doubt that he will build Western Kentucky up.
And it's not going to be the last time I see. We'll be facing him multiple times a year now up at UNT.
Exactly. So, Coach Lutz, farewell and best of luck, and thank you for what you did for A&M Corpus Christi. All right, that wraps that up. When we come back, we'll continue the breaking news. The Cowboys got Brandin Cooks. We'll also talk some March Madness. Keep it locked. You're listening to the Sunday Sports Rush. Welcome back to the Sunday Sports Rush. James Espinosa, Alex Weister, and Adin Ducker with you all the way till 11 a.m. The next 30 minutes, going to be a ton of March Madness talk. It's our March Madness Power Block, as I have so eloquently dubbed it. Going over the biggest stories of March Madness so far. We're going to check our brackets, all that good stuff. Big news of the day, though. Cowboys trade for Brandin Cooks, wide receiver from the Texans. The Cowboys give up a 2023 fifth-round pick and a 2024 sixth-round pick. We're taking your reactions on the text line to this trade. 361-882-5397. Hit us up on the text line and let us know your thoughts on the trade. Brandin Cooks is now a Cowboy. We have Luis Cruz in here. Shout out to Luis Cruz getting in. 361-882-5397. Luis says, I'm happy with it. Trading for Gilmore and Cooks and only giving up 2 fifth-round picks is good to me. Exactly. They only gave up a fifth for Gilmore. They only give up a fifth for Cooks. It's not like you're giving up a ton of draft capital here. You're giving up, fifth-round picks. And let's be real, once you get maybe what would y'all guys say? Once you get to the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds, it's all kind of a crapshoot at that point anyways on if you're going to hit or miss. Yeah, you could find some really good players. You could find all-pro starters every now and then in the later rounds. But for a couple of fifths who have unknown question marks, you're giving them up for a couple of guys who have skins on the wall. I think that's a great deal. 361-882-5397. Let us know your thoughts on this situation. We got one more in here. Jim from Wisconsin has weighed in. Shout out to Jim, one of our loyal listeners and friends. Jim says, hello. Hold your horses, Cowboys fans. This will be Brandin Cooks' 5th team in 9 years. Also, he'll be 30 years old in September. In the short term, this may work out. But the rebuilding Texans got the better of this, getting 2 draft picks for a guy with a big contract that no longer wanted to be there. Signed, Jim. Fair point. That's a great point, Jim. Yes. You
Always expect some level-headed analysis there from Jim. Love it.
I love it, too. And, yeah, Cooks did have his issues with the Texans. He did voice displeasure. He did want to trade last season. He even held out for a period of time. You're right about that. And he is about to be 30. This ain't a move. We're not expecting to keep Brandin Cooks for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Maybe 2, maybe 3 tops. But for what it is right now, I think the Cowboys got a good deal in getting a speedster on the outside, someone who could stretch the defense opposite of CeeDee Lamb. 361-882-5397. Thanks for getting in this morning, Jim, and everybody else. Hit us up on the text line. We're here for you all show long. All righty, let's go ahead and let's talk some March Madness because, boy, oh boy, lots are going on in that big tournament that they throw every single year. And we have our Sports Rush 1440 Bracket Challenge in the midst. It's happening right now. And let me just say this. I am currently ranked 14th. I have hit on 63% of my picks. Not great. My champion, Purdue, lost to FDU. Now,
Fairleigh Dickinson.
yeah, I was going to say, how do you pronounce that? Fairleigh or Farley?
Farley, yeah.
I've heard people say Fair Dick as a nickname for the university.
I mean, we've had Oral Roberts make a deep run a couple of years ago. We had the St. Peter's Gamecocks from last year make it, and now Fairleigh Dickinson.
So, quick aside, I have the worst luck ever. I picked Purdue to win the championship, and they lose in the first round this year to Fairleigh Dickinson.
Man,
Dickinson.
They just. I mean, okay, so they had Edey, right?
Yes, the big man, Zach Edey,
and he had his struggles, but it was really his other teammates that just couldn't hit a shot, and they just looked so out of focus, just poorly coached. Like I heard like Matt Painter, he's like this good regular season coach and all that, but this is the 3rd time in a row in the tournament where they lost to a double-digit seed, Purdue. They just straight up don't.
No, they're not the best. Go ahead, Alex.
I picked them to make the final, and sorry, Alex.
And for some reason,
yeah.
It looks like my entry into the Sports Rush bracket didn't make it, so I'll just have to take the one that I made and just compare it.
What's your percentage?
So it's I don't know what that is. So what is the point standing? Where would 360 put me right now?
Total 360?
As of right now.
You're tied for first place.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're tied for first place with Charlie, who is in first. Jim from Wisconsin. Jim, you're actually in second place. Sooner Clone, a.k.a. Chuck from Dallas, you're in second place as well. Philip G's in second. Aiden, you're in fifth. You've nailed 88% of your picks.
But I heard overall, though, in terms of like the nationwide, these are the worst performing brackets yet.
Where is Marcos? Marcos is all the way in 23rd. Marcos has 25% of his picks. Marcos picked Kansas State to win the whole thing.
They're not. Are they still in it? They're playing, right?
They're playing today, I think.
Today, okay, maybe.
Maybe, I guess. So
they have a couple of good players.
So that's our update on our bracket challenge. We're talking about Fairleigh Dickinson. God, Fairleigh Dickinson. They're just the second ever number 16 seed to win. The last 16 seed to beat a number 1 overall seed happened in 2018 when University of Maryland, Baltimore beat Virginia. Shout out to your boys in Maryland, Weister.
Yeah, I wasn't really familiar with that college. I'm really only familiar with like Towson and University of Maryland, which were both like the main colleges that everybody went to.
And you know what's the cool thing about this Fairleigh Dickinson story is that the FDU head coach, prior to playing Purdue, he made a prediction. He kind of hyped his team up a little bit. And
It wasn't really a prediction.
It was more of like, hey, let's get hyped. We can do this. His name is Tobin Anderson, and they won their first 4 play-in game, I believe. So they got in, and they found out they're playing Purdue, and he had some words of inspiration for his guys in the locker room, which evidently they took to heart. Here is Tobin Anderson, FDU head coach.
I don't want Purdue to see this, right? I walked in breakfast this morning, Cam. What did you say to me, Cam? Merles, where's Cam Merles? He said, the more I watch Purdue, the more I think we can beat them. Yes, sir. Let's go shock the world. Let's go do this. Yes, sir. Hey, enjoy this one. Enjoy this one. Be humble, right? Be humble. Enjoy this one. We go back. We're heading to Columbus, guys.
He said, the more I watch Purdue, we can beat them.
And I said that.
Wow.
And I said for the Islanders, that was the one seed I wanted the Islanders to play because I thought Purdue had the best chance. In terms of like the matchup, I thought the Islanders' best chance to win a game was against Purdue. Just
the fact,
and also Steve Lutz, former Purdue assistant as well. He probably had some. He probably had some notes to go along from his former Purdue days.
Fun fact about Steve Lutz, now former Islanders head coach. He actually helped recruit Zach Edey to Purdue. So
interesting.
Coach Lutz, of course, recruiting genius. He got Zach Edey to Purdue. So that's one of his guys over there. But
the way Purdue looked, I think the Islanders with Murdoch's healthy. What say they have a healthy Murdoch? I think they beat them.
Honestly,
it would have been close.
They could have just done it with the roster they had. I mean, the fact that they were not able to win that game with how small that team was compared. They had 6 guys who were taller than Fairleigh Dickinson's tallest player.
It was
they
literal.
Had 2 7-footers.
Literal David Goliath.
Yes.
I mean, the Islanders, the only reason they lost because Bama was hitting everything from 3.
I mean,
the 3-point discrepancy was huge. Purdue only hit like 4 or 5 of them.
Purdue couldn't make a shot to save their life.
They had a literal NBA roster out there. They had a big man who couldn't do anything besides defend down low and rebound. Then they had 4 shooters on the outside, and it was you couldn't do anything.
And Brandon Miller didn't even score.
So
literally nothing.
So I'm gonna get back on track a little bit here. There was more upsets besides the Purdue one. That was probably the biggest of the weekend for sure. But also, number 15 Princeton beat Arizona, and then Princeton won last night. So Princeton is in the Sweet 16.
That's probably my biggest mistake on the entire bracket.
I heard those kids are very smart.
Yeah, very, very
highly intelligent.
Of course,
smart guys.
You know, they're smart players on the court. You know,
Jason Garrett went to Princeton. Did you know that?
Didn't really translate to his coaching.
Red J. I mean, number 13 Furman beat number 4 Virginia.
That was probably the most shocking loss.
It was shocking.
I wouldn't say shocking because Virginia has a history, but the way that it unfolded.
Yeah, the way they lost.
Yeah, the way it unfolded at the end where the Virginia player just threw it up for grabs. The Furman guy grabs it, hits a 3 with 2 seconds left.
Play the audio.
Do we have the audio?
Yeah, we do.
Let's play that audio. Here's the Furman play-by-play. Dan Scott of Paladins Radio Network. Always love a good play-by-play guy, especially in March Madness. Go ahead.
Gets it in. Gets it back with 10. Clark double teamed along the baseline. Throws it up the floor. Intercepted by Heen. Pegues for 3. And the win. He got it with 2.2 to go. 68-67 Paladins. Virginia calls its final timeout. They get it into Beekman on the right side. His 3 on the way. No! And Furman wins it. Furman wins it. J.P. Pegues getting bombed by his teammates right here in front of us. The Paladins win it 68-67.
Love it. That was legendary.
And
love it.
The player for Virginia that made that boneheaded turnover was, I think he has the ACC record for all-time wins in the conference. He was a 5th-year player. You know, they get an extra year because of the COVID year. And he was that same player that made that pass against Purdue in 2019. that led to that buzzer beater.
Yes.
And then we actually talked about Steve Lutz about it. He just said that player made one heck of a pass there to feed it to send the game to overtime. It was the same player, man. Just that's how it goes sometimes, man.
One day you are the GOAT in terms of you're the man, and one day you're the GOAT in terms of choking.
His name was Key Clark, man. It's sad that that's how he has to go out, man. Because he was a good player for them.
That's tough. So things happened yesterday in March Madness because we're into the round of 32 now.
Oh, Duke lost.
Well, I'll get to that. Texas beat Penn State 71-66, and Dylan Dessou of Texas had himself an all-time performance, 28 points, 10 rebounds, and Dylan Dessou, he went off. This is Texas's first Sweet 16 since 2008. Dessou's 28 points is the most in an NCAA tournament game by a Texas men's basketball player since Kevin Durant did it in 2007. Little interesting fact right there. So Texas back in the Sweet 16 for the first time in 15 years.
Yeah, and I forget Texas would struggle in tournament with under the end of Rick Barnes' tenure, and then Shaka Smart. They just couldn't get past that first weekend.
And now head coach Rodney Terry, he took over for the
Chris Beard.
For the much maligned Chris Beard.
He just got a job at Ole Miss.
Yes, he's now in Ole Miss, which is insane.
SEC schools don't care. You got your charters job, great. We'll hire you no matter what.
So Rodney Terry has to be probably the front runner to keep the job.
I assume he's going to keep it.
And he has a striking resemblance to Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah.
If you've ever noticed. Go ahead.
And
Weister.
funny, and there's just one more little NCAA note. Purdue actually did get an upset. It was in wrestling. Their wrestler Matt Ramos ended a 58 match winning streak
against the Iowa wrestler, right?
Yes.
And did you see the reaction video of the mom?
Yeah. The wrestler's mom. Oh my goodness.
She threw a fit, broke her glasses.
But wasn't her son like the most dominant wrestler in college?
This is being touted as one of the most. This is touted as one of the most stunning upsets in D1 wrestling history.
Suck it up, Buttercup. Your son was winning all those matches. Just let him take the L for once.
And he was a 3-time champion, if I'm reading this correctly.
I know that's harsh, but face it, not everybody it was as fortunate as your son was. So just take the L with pride. Don't look like a sore,
a sore loser. So there we go.
I'm going to say something else, but
I'm glad you didn't. This is a family program on Keys. 361-882-5397. Get your thoughts into the text line. Let us know your thoughts on March Madness. Everything that's happening, we will take your reactions. And any other sports you want to talk about, get into the text line, 361-882-5397. When we come back, we got one more segment of March Madness recap. We'll also talk about how the Islanders did against Alabama and what does their program look like going forward. Can A&M Corpus Christi keep their momentum without Steve Lutz? All that and more after the break. Keep it locked. Welcome back to the Sunday Sports Rush News Talk KEYS, episode 110. James Espinosa, Alex Weister, Adin Ducker with you all the way till 11 o'clock. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll have a full Cowboy segment. All the moves they've made, both trades, Gilmore and Cooks. And Dak Prescott had some interesting comments on the release of Zeke Elliott. Dak is taking this one to the heart. We'll talk all of that and more in 15 minutes, so stick around. Cowboys Talk is coming up. But right now, we will continue our March Madness discussion. It's our March Madness Power Block. 30 minutes of March Madness talk for you. And we were going over some of the games from yesterday. I'm just going to run down them, and we'll comment as we go. And then we'll dive into the Islanders and how they look. So, San Diego State, number 5, beat number 13 Furman. Furman's dream run comes to an end. They got smoked by San Diego State, 75-52.
They fermented?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a nice beer, fermented. Tennessee beats Duke 65-52. The Blue Devils are out.
We'd love to see it.
Post Coach K, they're out in round 2, and Rick Barnes and his Tennessee Volunteers are on to the Sweet 16.
I mean, I think everybody enjoyed watching that. I mean, I thought Coach K retired. I thought Duke would lose some of his luster, but I guess their fan base came out crawling like roaches again when they had a little winning streak and they won a little ACC tournament.
Well, they were playing
against a bunch of mid ACC teams.
They were playing really good, but they lost. They're a young team, and under Coach Shire, we'll see what happens going forward. So Aiden got his Duke shots out the way. That's great.
Yeah, it is glorious. Love watching Duke lose.
Arkansas upsets Kansas 72-71. And Coach Eric Musselman ripped off his shirt after Arkansas won.
Literal Musselman?
Yeah, he ripped off his shirt and started celebrating with all the Arkansas folk up there. So 72-71 Arkansas over Kansas.
I'm sorry, Dotson. No, I think that's where he's from, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's I don't want to visit Arkansas.
And while my South and Midwest part of the bracket is a little bit shaky, my East and West, I've only missed one pick.
Look at you.
Sides. And that was, of course, Purdue. I got the Arkansas over Kansas right, but then I mispicked on Boise State.
I will say I'm not a Kansas fan either, and they are defending champs, but them not having Bill Self coaching, it hurts. So I picked them to make the Elite Eight, but it's kind of like, I feel a little bit bad that Bill Self wasn't out there to defend his title and whatnot.
That's true. Moving on, number 15 Princeton defeats number 7 Missouri 78-63. Princeton going to the Sweet 16. Those guys are balling. We talked about Princeton earlier.
Yeah, very, very quarterware, very smart,
very
intelligent,
cerebral team out there.
Knows how to make the right cuts.
Houston defeats Auburn 81-64. The number 1 seed Houston Cougars advance.
In the second half, they finally looked like the team that people thought they were. They struggled in their first in the 16 game. I forgot who they played, but they almost lost that. And they were down 10 at
Northern Kentucky.
Yeah, and they were down at 10 at halftime against Auburn. In the second half, they had a surge, and now they look like a team that should make the Final Four.
And then real quickly, UCLA defeats Northwestern 68-63, and then Alabama wins the nightcap 73-51 over Maryland. That wraps up yesterday's action.
I think Alabama looks like the best team right now.
So
just with how they play their first couple of games.
Speaking of Alabama, of course, they beat the Islanders 96-75 in round 1. Islanders played tough. Islanders held Brandon Miller scoreless, which is an accomplishment, although reports are out there that Brandon Miller was hurt, his groin, this and that. They were making excuses for him.
Yeah, I don't want to hear none of that.
Yeah.
But the Islanders did hold him scoreless, and Isaac Mishila dropped 16 points, 15 rebounds against Alabama. Absolute dog.
And I said this in the Twitter message. I need to find a woman that loves me just as much as Bill Raftery loved Isaac Mishila.
I mean, it's hard not to. When you see how much he's rebounding, you're like, oh, he must be pretty tall. You check, he's 6'5".
Like Raftery's like, he's putting in a day's work.
He was all.
I'm impressed by the toughness.
Yeah, this was Bill Raftery. Look at this guy. He's putting in work, Jim. He's putting in work.
Honestly, though, if he wants, NBA scouts are gonna look at that and see like his toughness. Like, there's teams that need something like that.
Now.
Kind of like a PJ Tucker-ish.
Yeah, these last few minutes, let's look at the Islanders program because they are slated to lose 3 seniors. They're going to lose Simeon Fryer, DeLazarus Keys, and Ross Williams. But the thing is, the core of this team, they all still have one more year left due to their COVID year. So Travion Tennyson, Jalen Jackson, Isaac Mushila, and Terrion Murdoch can all still come back if they choose to use their COVID year. Now, will they come back, or will some of these guys follow Steve Lutz to Western Kentucky? And I think that is the biggest question for this program going forward, Alex.
I could definitely see a Mushila following him, go to a bigger program, and really solidify your draft stock. Because with one more year, I really think he can. If he can build on his success, maybe get his rebounds up, average a double-double next year, he's really going to have some eyes on him.
The player that's the best prospect on the team, though, is Tennyson.
Yeah.
So I'm a little worried about Tennyson. I don't know, man. It's tough. We'll have to see with the transfer portal. Like, you can go anywhere you want now.
Yeah, I mean, these 4 guys, if they do choose to come back, and let's say the Islanders stay in-house and they keep Shaw as the head coach, then yeah, I think we'll be right back where we are next year as a Southland Conference contender and maybe make another NCAA tournament. Another guy to keep our eyes on is the emergence of redshirt freshman Owen Deese. Deese looks like a player for this Islanders team, and he showed out against Alabama as well. He had 14 points in that game. So Deese, I like his prospects. Go ahead.
And I don't want to say this with any sort of bias. It's just some odd pipeline that seems to pop up with both the women's team for the Islanders and the men's team having at least a player or two on UNT's roster. So that's also another potential spot with UNT moving to the AAC. I could definitely see one of them being like, well, they're moving up in conference.
Yeah.
Why not try and go there?
So a lot of questions and not a ton of answers right now for this Islanders men's program. But, if you can get Murdoch's back, if you could bring back 3 of 4 of these guys, if you could bring back maybe 2 of 4 of these guys, I think the Islanders are in great shape going forward. It's just the loss of Lutz. That's going to hurt the team, and I think a couple of these guys might follow him.
Yeah.
So there we go. Let's hope the Islanders can keep it together because, as we mentioned, this is a little bit of a sleeping giant that has kind of been awoken. I think a lot of people kind of know about us now.
Yeah. Oh, their school's on an island. It's so cool.
I know.
Well, thank you.
Everybody was freaking out about that on Twitter, and John Rothstein, who is CBS Sports' college basketball guru, kind of like their Adam Schefter, so to speak. I mean, he said A&M Corpus Christi is now a legit mid-major. His words.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Not mine.
I mean, if you think about it, if Alabama's if the rest of the roster outside of Miller didn't find Steph Curry's secret sauce or special sauce, who knows?
Who knows? So there we go. That wraps up our March Madness discussion. A lot of questions for the Islanders. Not a lot of answers right now. Steve Lutz leaving to Western Kentucky. Will the 4 guys who have eligibility left come back? Travion Tennyson, Jalen Jackson, Isaac Mushila, and Terrian Murdoch. Will they come back to the island? Story we're going to have to keep up with because this is a basketball city now, baby. Let's go. Islander pride, baby. Let's get it. I love it. All right. That wraps up hour number 1. Woo, what a show so far. When we come back, the Cowboys had themselves a week. Zeke is gone. Stephon Gilmore's here. Brandin Cooks is here. Let's talk some Cowboys to lead off hour 2. We're broadcasting live from the Americana Arms Studio. Big city selection, small town prices. This is KEYS Corpus Christi. Hour 2 coming up. Stick around. Good morning, Corpus Christi, Coastal Bend, listeners worldwide. Welcome into hour number 2 of the Sunday Sports Rush right here on News Talk KEYS 1440 AM and 98.7 FM. I am your host, James Espinosa, joined alongside producer and co-host Adin Ducker.
Cougars, I love Cougars.
We have Alex Weister in the building with us.
Glad to be here.
He's about to head back to UNT this week.
I love that Alex throws a little fist bump every time I play those sounders.
Hell yes. I do. I throw a little fist bump as well. A little fist bump. So there we go. All right, we're with you. And hour 2 is about to get underway. So the big news that happened today, and before we get into the Brandin Cooks trade and dive into everything Cowboys, we do have a follow-up from Jim from Wisconsin on the Islanders. Islanders basketball team who was eliminated by Alabama this past week. Steve Lutz has left the program to go be the head coach at Western Kentucky. And in the last segment, we were talking about who are some guys who could return to the team or who are some guys who could possibly leave with head coach Steve Lutz to Western Kentucky. And Jim weighed in with an interesting comment. Jim says, guys, Owen Deese is from Evansville, Indiana, right in Western Kentucky's backyard. I fear he's the one that follows Lutz, and that loss will be huge.
Oh.
I did not think about that. He is from up there, and like Jim is saying, that is very close to Western Kentucky.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a little bit of a homecoming of sorts for Deese. Interesting thought right there, Jim. I hope he stays in Corpus because that kid can ball, and he has some great hair, so that's awesome. I hope he stays. So there we go. 361-882-5397. Get in on the text line. Let's talk some Dallas Cowboys because, boy, oh boy, what a week it was for these damn Cowboys. First of all, the Cowboys made a trade earlier this week for Stephon Gilmore, cornerback of the Colts. The 5-time Pro Bowler is now a Cowboy. The Colts are receiving a 5th-round pick from the Cowboys in exchange for Gilmore. Gilmore had 2 interceptions last year with the Colts, 1 against the Cowboys. 11 passes defended, and 66 tackles in 16 games for the Colts. The 32-year-old veteran has 29 interceptions, 127 passes defended in 11 seasons. NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 2019 with the Patriots. But last year with the Colts, according to PFF, Pro Football Focus, he was 92nd percentile coverage grade, 93rd percentile coverage grade in single coverage, and 98th percentile coverage grade in the slot. Excuse me, but I think making A's is pretty good.
Yeah.
So according to PFF's metrics, he's still a pretty good corner.
Well,
and, I mean, according to that, take it for what it's worth.
Yes.
I know they have some weird-ass algorithms and all that stuff.
Take it with a very heavy pinch of salt, considering they had Kyle Hamilton as the best safety last year.
See, there we go. That's what I'm saying. But don't let that ruin my narrative, Alex, okay?
I'm just saying.
I know. So Stephon Gilmore's a Cowboy, and we talked about that a little bit earlier in the show. Now he's paired up with Diggs, and now they can utilize the rookie sensation from last year, Deron Bland, in the slot. And then Jordan Lewis is coming back off injury. The Cowboys also this week signed Donovan Wilson. Donovan Wilson is coming back to the Cowboys. He signed a deal with the boys, and things are looking good in that aspect as well. So Donovan Wilson, the safety, is back in Dallas. That was another news item. But the biggest item prior to today's Brandin Cooks trade, Ezekiel Elliott is no longer a Cowboy. Zeke was officially released on Wednesday afternoon, a cap casualty. Zeke ends his career with 8,262 rushing yards and 68 rushing touchdowns and 80 total touchdowns. All of those ranked third in Cowboys franchise history behind Hall of Famers Emmitt Smith and Tony Dorsett. So Ezekiel Elliott, number 4 overall pick in the 2016 NFL Draft. He was set to count $16.4 million against the Cowboys cap this year, but they have designated him as a June 1st cut. So the Cowboys will owe him $10.9 million. Zeke is gone. It's the end of an era in Dallas. Our thoughts on Ezekiel Elliott, him being gone, where he could possibly land, and his legacy in Dallas. I'll go ahead and start with Adin.
Yeah, when he first became a Cowboy, he was very dynamic, and he was a hell of a player. At the start, led the league in rushing yards in 2016 and 2018. It's just he has so many carries, and you just wear and tear took its toll the last few seasons, and he saw it on the field.
Yeah, you did see it on the field, and
it just didn't have the burst he had his first few seasons, man.
He had missed some time. He injured his medial collateral ligament. He had a hyperextension of the same knee. Zeke is still a touchdown vulture near the goal line.
Yeah,
and I think teams will value that. I think there will be some teams out there who will kick the tires on Zeke a little bit. I don't think Zeke is done in the NFL. I think he'll find his way to a team that could utilize him in those kind of short yardage, goal line, touchdown, vulture situations. Alex?
I would agree. And when you look at it, he's pretty much exactly the same age as Jamal Williams, who the Saints just signed. And he also fills a very similar role as a touchdown vulture who gets a lot of work down within like the 10 or 5 yard line.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about teams that he could go to, it's pretty much any team.
So there were
Lions?
I saw a couple of teams pop up, and there's been more that's popped up throughout the week, but these two teams kind of stood out. One of the teams mentioned as a possible landing spot for Zeke are the Houston Texans.
Yes.
To team him up with Dameon Pierce out there in the backfield. I mean, I think the Texans, let's face facts, their number 2 running back was Rex Burkhead. I'm not trying to hate on Rex Burkhead, but I think you can maybe slightly upgrade with Ezekiel Elliott.
You could almost move Rex Burkhead out to like a slot receiver.
Exactly. Another team that was interesting that was mentioned as a possible Zeke suitor were the Cincinnati Bengals, because they say that losing Samaje Perine as the power back in that offense was a big blow.
Yes, it was.
And that Elliott could fill the void as the power back to Joe Mixon, getting opportunities to rack up tough yards on third and short situations and inside the 20. As we mentioned, kind of a red zone touchdown vulture, so to speak. So Zeke is gone. And with that happening, Dak Prescott loses his running mate. And the guy who was drafted with him, the 214, Zach Zach, Deke. Hold up.
What are you talking about?
Dak and Zeke. I put their names together, Zach and Deke.
Oh, man.
Well, anyways, they're separated now, and Dak had some comments on Zeke being released. So let's go ahead and play those comments. This is courtesy of John Machota of The Athletic.
Yeah, it really is. It's tough. A brother, playing the game with a brother, being able to start this NFL career and share so many memories and grow up as men with this organization. I really can't imagine taking the field without him. Something I don't know if it's completely hit me yet. Obviously, I've talked to him. I'm hurt. I'm sure he is, but it's more important for me just to be able to support him. I know he's got more opportunities coming his way, and love that guy, proud of him. Number one supporter in here for him no matter what.
And yeah, the production went down, and we understand that. And yes, was he what he was once back in 2016 through 2019? No.
There's those Cowboys fans out there who think that the franchise themselves and all their players can be no wrong. They still think that Zeke is elite.
But those Cowboys fans have blue shaded tinted glasses, and I can't take them seriously. But my thing with Zeke is this. You cannot look at Ezekiel Elliott as a logical Cowboys fan and say that guy didn't give his all when he was a Dallas Cowboy.
Yes,
Zeke was a tough runner. Zeke picked up tough yards. Zeke was a hell of a blitz pickup running back. He was a good blocker in the backfield. Time to time, yes. Did he miss some? Of course. But my thing is this. Yes, Zeke was on the downslide of his career, but Zeke, in my opinion, had a hell of a run with the Cowboys, and he should be appreciated for that run, and we wish him the best of luck going forward.
Absolutely. And the reason why I kind of laugh there is when you bring up blitz pickup, you just got to think about that last play against the 49ers where they left him out on an island.
I mean, dude, okay. He's not a center, bro. And you know what's sad about that? That was his last ever play as a Cowboy. Getting blown up. Jesus. And I didn't think Jerry Jones had it in him to release Zeke Elliott, but the money handcuffed Jerry, and you cannot justify paying a running back room a combined $26 million with Tony Pollard's franchise tag.
And now, speaking of money, what kind of contract do you think he's going to command? Don't have to give it like a full contract, just a per year value.
5.
That's what you think?
I think like 5 or 6.
The reason why I bring that up is because when you want to do a comparison, you have to compare him to what Jamal Williams got. Because Jamal Williams was way more effective in pretty much the exact same role in a way.
Yeah.
And Jamal Williams got 4 a year.
Okay.
When he was a 1,000-yard rusher with 17 touchdowns.
That's why I said maybe 5. Maybe 5. It could be 4, and that's a good contract comp. And, of course, we'll have to see what happens with the Ezekiel Elliott situation going forward and where he lands. 361-882-5397. What were some of your favorite memories from Zeke's time with the Cowboys? I think that's a good question because Zeke did have a couple of memorable moments with the Cowboys. Everybody remembers that Pittsburgh game back in his, I think they were rookies when this happened. The Pittsburgh game where he had that 90-yard screen. And then he ran it up the middle in overtime for the game-winning touchdown. A lot of people remember when Zeke hurdled that Eagles defender.
Bears and Bengals. He was just dynamic his rookie year. He just never he bulked up, I guess, to take the wear and tear. But his rookie year, he had a different speed.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
You go back and look at rookie year Zeke highlights, and that zip that he had, that extra acceleration he had. It was something else, man.
And that is why he still commands more money than a guy like Jamal Williams, because of those early years where he was one of the best rushers in the league. That doesn't go away. While, yes, those days are likely behind him, it's the idea that it was there at one point. He can potentially tap back into that one day. It's just the thought.
Another team to keep an eye on for the Zeke sweepstakes will be the Los Angeles Chargers. I saw that team floated out there. The Kellen Moore connection. Austin Eckler is They gave him permission to seek a trade.
He might be gone.
So, I mean, they will need a little bit of help in that backfield.
Eckler saw Kellen Moore's playbook and was like, no thanks.
So there we go. That's where we're at this morning. Zeke's gone from the Cowboys. The Cowboys, of course, made news earlier this morning. They traded for Brandin Cooks, wide receiver from the Houston Texans. The Cowboys give the Texans a 2023 fifth-round pick and a 2024 sixth-round pick. Brandin Cooks is now a wide receiver alongside CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup. Does that improve the offense? Let us know. 361-882-5397. That wraps up our Cowboys segment. When we come back, I have a Spurs worst case scenario that happened to me while I was messing around with the NBA's Tankathon simulator. I only did one sim, and it was a worst case scenario for the Spurs in the NBA lottery. When we come back, I'll tell you about that. We'll react more to your Cowboys comments. Keep it locked to the Sunday Sports Rush. Welcome back to the Sunday Sports Rush, episode number 110. It's James Espinosa, Alex Weister, and Adin Ducker with you until 11 a.m. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to start our NFL free agency power block. 30 straight minutes of NFL talk for you. We're reacting to the Cowboys, their trade of Brandin Cooks, the release of Zeke Elliott. We're reacting to Steve Lutz leaving the Islanders program for Western Kentucky. And with that being said, we actually have a caller on the line. We have Ralph. Ralph wants to weigh in on Steve Lutz and say some words about Coach Lutz leaving to Western Kentucky. Ralph, good morning.
Good morning, you guys. Thank you first and foremost for highlighting our Texas Islanders. They did great. Both, not just the men's basketball team, but the women's. Now, here's the deal. I've been here at the university for 17 years. And back in 98, I think, Ronnie Arrow was the basketball coach. And he took us to the dance.
07, yeah.
And if you guys remember, soon after that, he left South Alabama.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Probably got a better paying job. Now, with Steve Lutz, the guy did great with us. He got on the TV and on Bob Jones and all you guys and professed how wonderful we are, and we are, and how good the guys are. But you know what it comes down to is people moving up, moving on, better paying jobs. But my point is that this happens, okay? But, you know, God, 2 days after we took the Islanders to the NCAA and the guy leaves, I kind of, where's the loyalty there? But that being said, I've got great pride in our, first of all, they're students. I talked with Bob Jones a couple of weeks ago. He was talking about they're throwing up three-pointers. I said, they're throwing up 3.5 GPAs. They're students first.
Yes, sir.
And but anyway, that being said, I'm going to keep it short, a little longer story, but I really appreciate you guys highlighting our Islanders because we're an important part of the community, and you know that. And we're going to have good things coming. And it doesn't take a coach. It takes student athletes.
You're right about that, Ralph. Hey, Ralph, we appreciate you getting your point across this morning, and thank you for the well words and all that stuff. And we appreciate you listening, sir. We're always going to tout the Islanders. We love that university. We love what they do for this community. We love both those men's and women's teams and all of the athletics that the Islanders put out there. So we appreciate you calling this morning, Ralph, and getting your point across.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes,
Bye.
sir. Thank you. There goes Ralph talking about Steve Lutz. And, he had a good point. Like, it's a step up for Coach Lutz.
Yeah.
It's probably a better paying job. It's in a conference that's bigger. If you look up Western Kentucky's basketball facility, which I did yesterday, they have an arena that is absolutely insane. and it's packed to the gills. So, I mean, it's a big – I'm not faulting Steve Lutz for anything. I don't think anybody this morning and going forward should say, Coach Lutz abandoned us. Coach Lutz stepped up in his career, and let's face facts, guys, this ain't going to be the last time that happens. Coaches do that all the time.
I mean, Ronnie Arrow, he left right after he led them to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Western Kentucky is an up and upcoming program. I mean, and also thanks a lot to the Coastal Bend. When you look at football, Bailey Zappi and that season that they had really put them on the map because that offense that they ran was electric.
Exactly. And, Ralph, we do appreciate you calling in, and Ralph made some great points. It is about the student athletes, and as long as those student athletes are there putting up those big grades, putting up those good GPAs, outstanding GPAs, 3.5s, etc., they're going to be just fine. Yeah. It hurts to lose a coach who brought you such prominence, but that is the task now for new AD, Adrian Rodriguez. How can he keep this momentum going? And he's going to have to make one of the biggest hires of his career coming up. So we appreciate Ralph for getting in. 361-882-5397. All right, that was fun. Let's go ahead.
The Spurs disaster.
I teased it. The worst case scenario for the Spurs happened to me the other night when I was messing around with the NBA Tankathon, which is a computer simulator. All you have to do is hit sim, and it spits out the draft order. So pretty much it's a mock lottery draft order. And when I hit it once, all things considered, the Spurs with 18 wins, one of the worst records in the league, I hit it once, and the Spurs dropped from a projected number 2 pick all the way down to number 6. And I think it just kind of shocked me because I was expecting, Spurs will be 1 or 2 at least. And it dropped them to 6. And that is what can happen in the lottery. That would be an absolute worst case scenario for the San Antonio Spurs with how bad they've been this year. If they were to fall from 1 or 2 all the way down to 6, and if they were to lose out on Wembanyama, Henderson, or Brandon Miller.
Now, did it project what their record was?
No, it took their records as it is now, and it just did a lottery. Boom, it spit it out.
So it just was the standings currently.
Yes.
Okay.
And it spit it out, and the Spurs ended up number 6.
I think that literally is the worst possible. I don't think you can drop further than 6.
Yeah, seriously, worst case scenario.
Like I said, the basketball gods, you need to reward the Spurs. This is their first year that they've been a lottery team since the year before Duncan. Just the Rockets have sucked for the last several seasons. The Pistons have sucked the last several seasons. Give this to the Spurs.
Just
Come on,
like
NBA gods.
Just like with Patrick Ewing and the bent corner on the envelope, we need a dented ball.
Listen, NBA draft lottery gods.
We need a dented lottery ball.
Or you know that
we need this so bad because if the Spurs were to waste a season as one of the worst teams ever just to get number 6. Man, I cannot tell you how devastated I would be. Albeit the guy who they probably draft at number 6 will be pretty good, but still, it's not one of these top 3 prospects in Victor Wembanyama, Scoot Henderson, or Brandon Miller.
We need like a Jimmy McGill. Remember that episode of Better Call Saul where he rigged the bingo for that old lady, so they all hated it, and all the seniors hated her and all that. We need that.
So that was my worst case scenario, and I wanted to present it to you guys because it was a little experiment I did. Speaking of the Spurs, they blew a 29-point lead to the Grizzlies on Friday, and they lost in overtime. It was the largest comeback of the NBA season. So the Spurs have been doing their job. They're 18-52 on the season. They are officially the worst team in the Western Conference, and I believe they're right behind the Detroit Pistons as the second worst team in the NBA.
And I would just like to say, I did a sim, and this is absolute chaos. I have Utah at number 1. I don't know how they jumped 12 spots.
Where did the Spurs land?
4.
Okay. I can handle 4, but damn it. It has to be, Aiden, if the Spurs drop from 1, 2, or 3, does that just ruin the whole tank year?
Yeah, you have to probably tank another year.
But here's the thing. Utah gets 1. New Orleans got 3. Those are two teams that if they get a top 3 pick are going to be loaded, especially New Orleans.
So in my simulation, the number 1 team ended up being the Magic. Number 2 was New Orleans. Number 3 was the Hornets.
Magic were number 7 in mine.
So, good Lord. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Let's hope the Spurs can avoid that worst case scenario, because if they were to drop from 1 or 2 all the way down to number 6.
In my second, I got the Spurs at number 1, baby.
It would be absolute disaster. So there we go. We appreciate Ralph for calling in and giving his Lutz takes. And we appreciate y'all guys for being here. We got 30 minutes left with you. We're still going to react to the Cowboys Brandin Cooks trade. I got some comments to read after the break. But when we come back, it's going to be a 30-minute power hour or power half hour of NFL free agency talk. Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Garoppolo, all that and more when we come back on the Sunday Sports Rush. Keep it here. Welcome back to the Sunday Sports Rush. Episode number 110. James Espinosa, Alex Weister, and Adin Ducker with you this morning. We appreciate everybody who's got in on the text line. We appreciate our caller, Ralph. That was pretty cool. And yeah, it's been a crazy show this morning. The Cowboys made a trade for Brandin Cooks, and we're reacting off that. Steve Lutz is leaving the Islanders to go to Western Kentucky. We're reacting off that as well. Let's head to the text line, 361-882-5397. Ryan L. is in here. Ryan says, Corpus did very well against Alabama. Also, the win for Corpus in the first round of the NCAA tournament is going to help recruiting for the program in the long run.
Absolutely, yeah.
I agree with that. Sound take, Ryan. I think the win in the first 4 and also competing against Alabama bodes well for the program and their future, and I think it's a very attractive job. The national search is on. The new AD has said they will look nationally, but for the meantime, they have an interim head coach, Jim Shaw, who was on the staff already. So he's probably a top candidate to be the head coach as well, but I'm sure they will do their due diligence. Justin Merrill's in here. He's reacting to the Brandin Cooks trade of the Dallas Cowboys.
Biggest Dak Prescott fan we know.
Justin Merrill says, another receiver for Dak to overthrow. Perfect. Right on cue, Justin. We love you, man. 361-882-5397. Let's get to another comment here real quickly. My good friend Aaron is in here of the Tacos and Touchdowns podcast. Aaron says, I like the trades for Cooks and Gilmore, adding veteran presence and value to the team, what they were missing last year. I would hope they re-sign Hankins and Watkins, sign a left guard to replace McGovern before the draft, but overall, I give this offseason a solid B. Okay, that's nice. I like it, yeah. Veteran presence, Cooks and Gilmore, as we've mentioned throughout the show. Aiden, you did mention they needed some interior depth on the line as well, so he kind of goes on into that point with replacing McGovern and hopefully re-sign Hankins and Watkins, who are the big defensive tackles in the middle of that defense. So yeah, I like it, Aaron. I think that'd be great. Let's hope that happens. One more in here, and then we'll get to our NFL free agency stuff. Scotty is reacting to the Cowboys offseason. Scotty says they failed on Ramsey, they failed on OBJ, they failed on DeAndre Hopkins, they acquired Brandin Cooks. Hopefully, Jerry can get Wagner. Okay.
Well, they signed Leighton Vander Esch.
Yeah, they brought back LVE. Let's not forget that.
I think they're out of the Bobby Wagner sweepstake.
It's just a little pessimistic right there from Scotty. But hey, it'd be nice if they could get Bobby Wagner, but he's going to command a lot of money, and I don't think they have it right now to get Bobby Wagner. I think that's going to be lost.
Dan Quinn runs 2 interior linebackers, unless you make Micah Parsons mostly an edge rusher. I mean, that's Micah Parsons and they Leighton Vander Esch. The Cowboy defense, like I said, they run 2 interiors.
Yeah.
In linebackers, so those are 2 spots right there.
It could be LVE and Damone Clark, who came on kind of strong last year. I mean, there's still Jabril Cox back there in the linebacker room.
From what I hear, Bobby Wagner's tied to the Eagles, maybe.
And he's commanding a ton of cash, so Cowboys fans, don't get your hopes up on Bobby Wagner being a Cowboy. All right, so that wraps up our reaction right there. Get in on the text line, 361-882-5397. Let's talk some NFL free agency because holy crap, things went down Aaron Rodgers says he wants to play with the Jets in 2023. He was on the Pat McAfee show. And Aaron Rodgers, quote, "I made it clear my intention was to play for the New York Jets, and I haven't been holding anything up. It's the compensation that the Packers are trying to get. The Packers want to move on and have let me know that in so many words," Rodgers said on the Pat McAfee show. So Rodgers has already come out and said he wants to play for the Jets. A deal has yet to happen. Rodgers will probably be on the Jets. There's no way the Packers are bringing him back. He's already saying he wants out of Green Bay. This is going to happen. And the Jets, meanwhile, also signed Alan Lazard, who was a receiver with Green Bay, to a 4-year deal. They're already acquiescing to Aaron Rodgers, and they might bring in some more guys. They're rumored to be in on Randall Cobb and tight end Mercedes Lewis, both former Packers teammates.
But the thing is, it seems like they're really not making any headway in terms of compensation in a package for Rodgers. And I don't think the Packers are really going to budge much, because you can't just settle for something for Aaron Rodgers.
You got to get the most you can get.
Yes.
And that's just smart business. So this trade might not happen now. It might take a little while, but I think it will happen. They just, like Aaron Rodgers said in that quote, the compensation has to be right for Green Bay to make a deal. That's only smart business.
And who has the most to lose in this? The Jets. They are entering a win-now mode with all the young talent they have.
And
Rodgers is leaving regardless. He's not going to be there. They can go into a bit of a rebuild with Jordan Love. A lot of their talent's leaving. What do they have to lose? Go into a rebuild? If Rodgers sits, Rodgers sits. It is what it is. He's not going to play for us. The Jets want to go into their win-now mode. They have the talent. Their window is going to start opening within the next couple of years. If they don't go and get Rodgers or another great quarterback, that window may not be fulfilled.
it's funny how the AFC East all of a sudden became a gauntlet.
It did become a gauntlet because another guy has ended up in the AFC East. The Rams traded Jalen Ramsey to the Dolphins. So Jalen Ramsey is now on the Dolphins. He joins them. He's going to be teamed up with cornerback Pro Bowler Xavier Howard of the Dolphins. So they now have a formidable secondary.
The Bills, Dolphins, and Jets were never this aggressive when Brady and Belichick were together.
How crazy is that, right? Jimmy Garoppolo is now a Raider. That happened.
No one. I mean, they went from Derek Carr to Derek Carr. So.
I mean, they still have one of the worst defenses in the NFL. So.
Yeah, they didn't really change much on that front.
7 wins, 8 wins again. I don't know.
Man,
well,
if that, maybe 6.
Maybe. I mean, Jimmy G, I'm looking at these numbers right here. As a starter, he's 40-17. 87 touchdowns, 42 interceptions, 67 pass percentage. Not bad.
Let's not forget the teams he played for, though, with the Patriots and the 49ers. Come on.
I forgot. Respect to Jimmy G, I forgot his darn handsomeness is going to inspire the Raiders to play better as a team. So
you think so?
Sure.
Maybe.
It's a possibility.
I mean, he's just so handsome, right? That's what people say.
All right, calm down, buddy.
You know what?
Simmer down back there. Simmer down. Some more news items that occurred during NFL free agency week, which was absolutely insane. The Bucs are bringing in Baker Mayfield to be quarterback 1.
Yeah, we got some competition still. It looked like a division that was ours to win, and now it looks like it's just still up for grabs again.
And go ahead, Aiden.
And the Bucs, they were in a bad cap situation entering the offseason. They've been able to bring back a few of their key guys that I didn't think, like they brought back Levante David. Who else did they bring back as well? I know David was a big piece that they brought back.
Yeah.
Oh, and Anthony Nelson they brought back.
The Bucs are still in a win now situation.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, right now as it looks, Baker Mayfield quarterback 1, Kyle Trask quarterback 2.
Jamel Dean, that's another guy they brought back. Yeah.
So the Bucs will still be contending. Of course, the Saints did add Derek Carr.
Yes.
That happened last week, and I know y'all guys waxed poetic about that here on the show when I was gone. Speaking of the Saints, Jameis Winston is staying with the Saints to be their backup.
I am very happy with that. In his post on Instagram, it really seemed like he plans to stick here and really challenge Carr for that starting job.
That's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't see him taking the job, but I think that's Carr's. But it's good that Jameis is at least, bought into New Orleans, and he's a solidified backup if things were to go wrong.
I mean, he all the crowd breaks he wants in Nolans. So
Taylor Heineke is set to join the Falcons. He's leaving the Commanders.
That's your third time doing that now.
I know. He'll probably be the Falcons quarterback 1 unless Desmond Ridder can unseat him. I'm thinking the Falcons want.
Yeah, Ridder at the end of the season looked very promising.
So we'll see what happens with that. Sam Darnold is now a 49er on a 1-year deal because the 49ers, of course, you got Brock Purdy hurt. You got Trey Lance, who broke his leg last year. And Trey Lance, when he was in, he wasn't lighting up the world, so to speak. So Sam Darnold's going to be in there now as a veteran presence.
I mean, he's insurance, basically.
Yeah. Insurance.
And I think the NFL, the competition committee, they're going to look at adding a third quarterback on the roster.
They probably should because quarterbacks are getting hurt.
And honestly,
it seems like at a more frequent rate than they ever have been.
And honestly, make it an extra roster spot for that,
So more stuff to get into here. The Eagles made a move. They added running back Rashard Penny. And they said goodbye to Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is gone, and Rashard Penny is in. The thing with Rashard Penny is he's a really great running back, but he tends to get hurt.
Yes.
Yeah, but go ahead, Alex.
The Eagles have, I'm pretty sure you're going to touch on a great running back room.
Yeah, they run 3 running backs.
Yeah, if he gets hurt, they have 2 very quality backups that can fill in. So it's a win-win in a way. If he stays healthy, he's going to be a great running back for them. They lose him, they got other backups that they can rely on and possibly show what they have to become the running back.
And then Cowboys fans love pointing out Jalen Hurts also runs their rock too.
Yeah, he does.
They love pointing out that he likes to run. He doesn't pass that much.
Look, I cannot speak for all Cowboys fans because some of them out there are just complete idiots, and I acknowledge the fact that there's a sect of this fan base that just doesn't approve of anybody who doesn't wear the star. I'm not one of those guys, thankfully. But those Cowboys fans are dummies. Moving on, the Lions signed David Montgomery, running back, to a 3-year deal. Pretty good move for the Lions.
Have to fill in that Jamal Williams hole.
Your Ravens are still in a weird situation with Lamar Jackson. Jackson earlier this week disputed claims that he turned down a $200 million deal. So that contract situation with Lamar and the Ravens is still very weird.
And they can't spend any of the money.
That thin ice is starting to crack.
They can't spend any money, the Ravens, in free agency right now.
The Eagles are bringing back Darius Slay after it was reported that they were going to release him.
That was such a bizarre situation.
Yeah, and then later on in that day, in an unexpected turn, Slay returned with a $42 million extension.
That was such a bizarre situation.
So just pretty weird. The Eagles are also bringing back James Bradberry, which is another great move. They're still going to be a great team.
They held on to James Bradberry.
Yeah, exactly. They held on to him.
Ouch.
The Patriots signed Juju Smith-Schuster to a 3-year, $33 million deal. So Juju's going to go up there and be the number 1 guy because Myers left to the Raiders.
And Jacoby Myers was not very happy because they gave him the same contract that Myers got, and he actually posted on Twitter and said, it's a tough world out there. That's rough, man, because he had his best season for the Patriots yet, and then they cut ties with him and gave the same contract he got to another guy.
That boneheaded play he made it against the Raiders, though. You had to think
doesn't take away from the fact it was his best season as a Patriot.
And now he is a Raider. So how funny is that?
The Raiders double agent that day.
Let's wrap up the segment. When we come back, we'll have some more NFL free agency thoughts, a couple of more comments from you guys on the text line in regards to the Cowboys, and just a couple of more Cowboys notes to get to. Last segment of the show is coming up. Keep it locked to the Sunday Sports Rush. Welcome back to the Sunday Sports Rush, where we're getting down, dog. We're in here. All my dogs in the house. Oh, 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 oh.
Man.
James Espinosa, Alex Weister, Adin Ducker. We're in the house. Doug Kesterson actually just walked into the building.
Alex.
The boss is in here. He's probably listening to our shenanigans right now, giving us an air check.
Alex, give me from a 1 out of 10. How cringe was that? 10 being the cringiest.
It was about a 9. That was up there, man.
8.
Quick aside on my cringiness. So I now teach high school, and I try to keep up with some of the slang terms that these young high school kids are using. And so every now and then I'll be talking and I'll be giving a lesson or whatever. And then I'll drop in a slang word. So for instance, I'll be like, yeah, we're about to do this, this, and this. This lesson's about to be lit, y'all. And then literal record scratch. Like everybody just kind of pauses. And then they look at me. And one of my students told me one time,
Don't do that, Aiden.
They're all, Mr. Espinosa, they're like, you're so cringe but funny. And I was just like, wow.
They're really trying not to hurt your feelings with that one.
Don't use the term touch grass either, James. You're too old for that.
And I was just like, well, you know what? I'd rather be cringe and funny than be boring as hell. And I told him that. And then that's
nobody ever said you were boring.
So there we go.
Oh, man.
Mr. Espinosa being cringy on the radio. 361-882-5397. More Cowboys reaction. How do you think their offseason has gone? Your thoughts on the Brandin Cooks trade? We got Joey in here. Joey says, Brandin Cooks will definitely open up the field. I don't know how much of a deep threat he is anymore, but he will definitely help your offense. Fair take from Joey. Brian's in here. Brian says the Cowboys are having a lovely offseason! Exclamation point, exclamation point. I agree. I think so, too. George D's in here. Friend of the show. George says, good morning, all. As always, you guys are spot on. Enjoying your show. Have a safe and healthy week. Thank you, George D. We appreciate all the kind words, all the wishes right there. So there we go. Kind of wraps up that. If you have any last-second thoughts, get them into the text line, 361-882-5397. Back to a little bit more of the NFL free agency discussion. The Bengals made a big move. They signed tackle Orlando Brown Jr. to a 4-year, $64 million deal. The Bengals, of course, have been struggling to protect Joe Burrow, and now they got a left tackle in there that can do it.
Left or right.
Well, yeah, he's flexible for sure. But good move for the Bengals.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then Jonah Williams requested a trade.
Well, no surprise there.
He gave him 12 sacks in the season.
Yeah, bro, we can't be doing that.
Yeah.
Can't be doing that. The Patriots signed Mike Gesicki, tight end, 1 year, $9 million deal, which is also interesting because the tight end market has been kind of stale. It hasn't really moved too much. And Dalton Schultz is a free agent, Cowboys, tight end. And to me, a 1 year, $9 million deal for Gesicki, I don't think that's boding well for Schultz on the free agency market.
It's not.
Yeah.
Because you would have thought Schultz, with all the production he's had over the past couple of years, would have already signed a multi-year deal, maybe a 3 for 30 or something like that, 3 for 35.
Schultz gives off the vibe he thinks he's like a Gronk or Kelsey.
Yeah.
Is Schultz?
He gives off that vibe.
Is Schultz a Dak product? Like is Schultz is Schultz reliant on Dak because he was Dak's safety blanket? Do you know what I'm saying? Like
I get, yeah.
Like, does Schultz really threaten defenses, or is it just, oh crap, Schultz is open, Dak's gonna throw it?
It's a bit of both because tight ends, they're meant to sort of be a safety blanket in a way, but also if you have a good one, they can be a threat as well. So it's a bit of both.
I just think that Schultz might have, I think he's overplaying his hand a little bit, and I think he's going to have to settle for less than what he and his agency probably thinks he's worth. So keep an eye on that. And there's also a possibility that the Cowboys could bring him back if the numbers are right. If he's not getting the numbers he wants in free agency with the other teams, he might come knocking on the door to Dallas and say, hey, let's work this out. I'm willing to come back for, a little bit less money than I would have possibly got. So keep your eyes out on that. 361-882-5397. Mondo is in here. What's up, Mondo? How's it going, bro? Mondo says, the Cowboys should have got rid of Dak Prescott, not Ezekiel. Mondo, my guy, listen. They're not getting rid of Dak anytime soon. And getting rid of Zeke was a cap casualty number for a running back who was in serious decline. I'm sorry to break it to you, my man, but this ain't the Zeke from 16, 17, 18, or 19. That Zeke died a long time ago. Second contract Zeke has been going downhill, my guy. You don't get rid of your franchise quarterback and keep a washed-up running back, Mondo. That's it. Thanks for getting in, though. We appreciate you. 361-882-5397. You like how I sandwich that?
Yeah.
It's called the sandwich technique. You acknowledge, hey, thanks for getting in. And then you criticize, and then you end with a compliment. Sandwich technique. That's a teaching method. You just got schooled. So we only have 5 minutes left, and we appreciate y'all guys getting in. If you have any final thoughts, hit us up on the text line. We are here for you. Looking at the NFL page, and of course, the big news of the day was the Cowboys trading for Brandin Cooks. We've already discussed that. Breaking Texans news. The Texans reached a $75 million extension with left tackle Laramie Tunsil.
Well deserved.
That is
Another great
awesome
move for the Texans.
3 years, $75 million. The deal includes a $30 million signing bonus with $50 million fully guaranteed.
That's a lot.
Damn! Laramie Tunsil made that money, baby. You could go get a gas mask with all the weed with $50 million.
I thought we were past this.
We're never going to be past that.
Man.
You'll never live that down. It's a funny moment. I mean, probably not for him in the moment, but
just the fact that somebody during the draft leaked that video just to spite him on like the biggest night of his life.
How insane was that? Like, in retrospect, that was such a moment on Twitter and social media.
Was.
That was so dirty. I hope whoever did that to him, like, I hope they're struggling through life right now.
Wow.
I mean, he's succeeding, so I would say they probably are.
We don't want to wish any ill will on anybody, Aiden, but I see what you're doing. It's okay. I'm just kidding. The Cowboys did restructure the contract of Michael Gallup. It created $7 million in room. I mentioned earlier the Cowboys did agree to terms with safety Donovan Wilson, a 3-year deal worth up to $24 million. Pretty awesome. So Donovan Wilson will be back. And then, of course, Leighton Vander Esch back on a 2-year deal worth $11 million. And the Cowboys brought back Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush is back on a $6 million max deal with $2.75 million guaranteed. It's a 2-year deal, so the Cowboys got their backup quarterback back in the fold, which I have no issues with. We saw what Cooper Rush did when Dak was out, led him to a 4-1 record. He's 5-1 overall as a backup when he gets a chance to start. Nothing wrong with getting a good number on a backup quarterback.
For sure.
And someone who knows the personnel, etc. I like that move. It's a good move from the Cowboys. Good move from the Cowboys. Real quickly, Team USA beat Venezuela last night 9-7 in the World Baseball Classic. There was a grand slam hit by Trey Turner in the 8th inning, which put the USA up 9-7, and the crowd went absolutely nuts. Here's the audio courtesy of Fox.
The 0-2 to Turner, and he throws this one deep left field. Trey Turner, grand slam home run on an 0-2 pitch. The United States takes a 9-7 lead.
USA, 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 USA. So now the USA plays Cuba tonight. And in the other semifinal, it's Japan versus Mexico, which Mexico's kind of having a Cinderella story. And the two winners of the semifinals will meet in the World Championship game on Tuesday evening. So there we go.
Yeah, I thought Venezuela had a chance to win the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, Team USA, they've been pretty much the entire run so far, a team of comebacks.
Jose Altuve got hurt, which sucks.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be one of these guys, oh, the World Baseball Classic sucks, bro.
It means a lot to a lot of these players.
Yeah, it means a lot to them. Shut up, Mets fans. Shut the hell up.
Out 8 to 10 weeks, so it's not season ending.
Thank God. He'll be all right. He'll be fine.
Daniel Barr, by the way, what's up with that, man?
Yeah.
Like, that was bad.
So there we go. That wraps up our show. We appreciate y'all getting in on the text line. Thank you for calling in. Ralph, shout out to you. Thank you for everybody who listened this morning. Aiden, great job.
Yee.
Alex, it was a pleasure.
Yep, as always.
For Adin Ducker, Alex Weister, I am James Espinosa. Thank you guys for listening to the Sunday Sports Rush. We'll be back live next week. Make sure you guys tune in for that. No more questions. Talk to you next week.